What social media platforms should you be using in your digital ministry? And more importantly, why should you even be using them? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode of How to Do Digital Ministry. I'm Reverend Jim Keat, the digital minister at the Riverside Church and the director of online innovation at Convergence. And before we dive in on all of that, let's start by playing a game. Okay, here we go. How this works is I'm going to show you a logo of a different social network online platform, and you have to guess what it is. We're going to keep this moving because there's a lot of social networks, and this isn't even all of them. So you can, leave a comment, say it out loud, keep track of your points. You know how games work. Okay, here we go. Number one. What's this one? MySpace. Oh, remember that? Tom, everyone's best friend. How about this? Some of you might remember this one. It was a big hit in the pandemic, still around. Clubhouse. That's right. Oh, this one's a gimme. I think you know this one. Snapchat. That's right. There you go. All right. This one, it is not MasterCard. You know this. Yep. Flickr. That's right. Photo sharing site. Oh, this one gives it away. LinkedIn. Yep. That's right. Anyone know this one? Periscope. Twitter bought this a while back. It was their live streaming service. I don't know if they still use it. I should check that out. They have their own native live streaming now. Doesn't everybody? Okay, this one, you all know this. It's all everywhere these days. Facebook Messenger. You might not know this one. This is a deep cut. Does not currently exist anymore. Beam. This was the tech company started by Casey Neistat that was eventually bought by CNN and turned into a news company. They stopped the whole tech they were designing. Anyway, fun story. Oh, yep, you know that. TikTok. You're on TikTok, right? This one? Not really a social network, but definitely an online platform. Slack. So much better than email. Whew. Anyone out there use Slack instead of email? Yep, for sure. Oh, yeah, Facebook. We all know that one. The rulers of the metaverse. Or the inventors of it. The colonizers of it. Oh, that's a whole other conversation. Oh, it's in the name right there. Google Plus. Another one that doesn't exist anymore. Google's failed experiment at making a social network. But I love that Google keeps throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Another Google success, meaning a purchase they made that they've turned into a great success, YouTube. Oh, this one? No, it's not Twitter. Tumblr. Yep, Tumblr. Still a thing. That one, yeah, you know it. WhatsApp. Used around the world. Here's another one that is no longer in existence. Vine. A lot of current YouTubers got their start on Vine. Liza Koshy, David Dobrik, Logan Paul, I think, got started on Vine. All right, this one's a big one these days. Twitch. Yeah, mainly used for streaming video games. At least that's kind of its main forte, but it's definitely used for more than that too. Oh yeah, you know that. Instagram. You just checked Instagram 2 minutes ago, didn't you? How about this little red alien? Reddit. All right, here we go. Yeah, we use it. Like, how many times a day have you been on a Zoom call? Definitely an online platform that's in our world. Who can't know this letter P? Pinterest. Ooh, this one's a little bit more of a new kid on the block. It's called Caffeine. It's another live streaming service, kind of similar to Twitch, but different somehow. I don't really know much about Caffeine other than that it was listed as one of the social networks to watch in 2021 and 2022. Oh, little bluebird, Twitter. And last but definitely not least, one more deep cut that still exists, Zynga. Oh, anyone else use Zynga? I remember my first blog was on Zynga, and when I was a youth pastor, we had our youth group blog on Zynga. Whew, that was 20 years ago? No, 15. That was a while ago. Okay, this is the list of all the things. Not even all the things. This is just technically some of the things. But let's imagine the list keeps going. The page is full of icons because there's always more social networks. There's probably more that I missed. But when it comes to all the things, speaking of, how many of those things did you get correct? What's your score? Leave a comment down below. We'll see who is the grand winner of this video. But when it comes to all the things, it's important to know that you don't have to do all the things. You don't. We sometimes feel this pressure to stay up with every new trend and invention and thing that everyone's into on the internet. And it's like, oh, they're doing that, so I got to do that. They're doing that. No. You can't do all the things. It's just impossible. You don't have the capacity. We are all limited by this number right here. We all have the same 1,440 minutes every single day. That's all you've got. You can't do everything. And I like to think, why half-ass everything when I could like whole-ass one or two things? And really, when I look at a list of all the social media platforms, all the online spaces that I could be investing my time, both personally and professionally, pastorally as a digital minister, there are generally two questions I like to ask. Number one, who am I called to serve and where do they spend time online? That's a good starting point to just know what should I spend time doing. That's also a good question for any sort of ministry, just exchange online with whatever it is they do, where they're physically at gathering, what their interests are. You should be spending time incarnationally present with the people you're called to serve. So who are you called to serve? Where do they spend time? In the case of digital ministry, online. That's a first question I like to ask when I'm kind of thinking through a list like this and what should I spend time with. And the second is, what platforms energize me the most? Which ones do I just feel like, ooh, I got something humming here, and I'm just interested in trying this, or it gives me a little boost to make it, to try it, to see what happens. That's part of your personal style and your authentic self that we are always called to bring to ministry. The two questions are important together. You're not just thinking narcissistically of where do you like spending time. I love Twitter, even though my congregants don't. No, you have to find that balance in between the two, and ideally the overlap between the two. And you never know, maybe a platform or a space that you aren't energized right now, as you start engaging with your congregants or the people you're called to serve, you'll find energy there. So, and vice versa. Maybe as you start engaging the platforms you're energized by, your congregants will follow you and spend time there as well. Lots of good possibilities. But these are the questions I like to ask when I'm thinking through all the things. But which of these things are the most important things? That's what we're going to spend some time on in this video. I have my picks of what I would say are the most important things out of that giant list of all those social media networks and online platforms. This is by no means exhaustive. This is not, an empirical study that says this is why these are the most important. This is just in my humble opinion. So let me show you what they are. Ta-da! Here's where, in the current state of the internet, I think it's worth investing your time. Now, again, this list of 5 things, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, might be more than you as an individual or your church or ministry has the capacity to really lean into. So again, you don't have to do all the things, even all these 5 things. You could still even narrow this down even more. But I think these are the 5 worth considering. And I'm going to talk through why. Here's why I think these 5 social network online platforms are good for churches, faith leaders to engage with. The how I will leave to the help pages on these platforms, because it's always changing. And if I try to tell you how to use Facebook in 2 weeks, Facebook's going to change everything. And my advice is pretty much moot. So let's start with Facebook. And we're going to talk about the why. Why to do Facebook as a church. Number 1, Facebook is the new email. Here's what I mean by that. Once upon a time, everyone, email was this new thing, and then we all loved it and we were intrigued by it, and then we kind of learned to just accept it as normal. Now we probably are kind of overwhelmed by it, to be honest. Facebook used to be the new thing. We used to love it and be so excited by it, and now it's kind of ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and many people have lots of strong opinions about it. But more than that, I think that chances are, for most, especially mainline churches in North America, given the general demographic that makes up our congregations, most of our congregation probably checks Facebook more regularly than email, at least multiple times throughout the day. If you were to just on a Sunday morning ask your congregation, how many of you have checked email today? How many of you have checked Facebook today? You're probably going to get more hands for Facebook than email. So I think Facebook is the new email. It's just where people are. So we need to be where people are and spend time connecting and communicating and engaging them in those spaces. And number 2, I think Facebook is the new website. Once upon a time, websites were new and like, oh, you got to get a website for your church. People are going to check your website before they come to your building. Well, now I think people are going to check your Facebook page before they go to your website, before they go to your building. Because your Facebook page, it should have the accurate information about, service times and programs and offerings and where to get in touch with you. But it also gives you a bit more context, like real time, who we are, the general vibe of a space. So people are going to check your Facebook and see what you're about there, maybe before or instead of ever going to your website. Now, I'm not saying get rid of your website, because those are still very important, but I am saying just be aware of how people use these things. Third, I think Facebook is worth using for digital ministry and for churches because boosted content can hit a small target. This is the whole Facebook ads. You pay to play, you put some money behind a post, which is a whole other ethical dilemma, but you can really hone in on who exactly you want to see specific content. So if you have an event happening locally, you can really target your local area. You can boost the thing. Just next time you're on your Facebook page, just that little boost button below a post, click it. It'll bring up a whole window that lets you create a custom demographic of location and interests and add however much money you want to add to it for however long you want the ad to run. It's a really great way to target specific audiences with the things that you're trying to make more available. But again, that's a whole other ethical dilemma of giving money to Facebook. Number 4, Facebook groups are kind of not horrible. Most of Facebook, I'm a little bit on the side of it's kind of horrible, but it's a necessary, sad reality in our world because people are there, and I'm not ready to just abandon the whole platform altogether because I value the people. But Facebook groups, I think, are the best positive upswing I've seen in a long time of a way to engage and connect with people I know, people I'm getting to know around topics and interests that we share together. If you're watching this video and you're into digital ministry, there are definitely some Facebook groups that are great for digital ministry. Digital Ministry Hive Mind is the first one that comes to mind. Church Communications is a great one. There's like a progressive YouTube one Sammy Kelly started. Sammy, what's it called? Leave a comment below, Sammy. There's all sorts of good ones. There's a sermon prep one that I started a few years ago. Bruce Reyes Chow started Zoom Faith. Lots of great Facebook groups that you should check out. So, yeah. And if you have more questions about Facebook, specifically how to use Facebook, their help page is very helpful. And it will give you all the technical, tactical ways to use the platform, how to post things, what size to put your pictures, and all the stuff you might be wondering. How do I start a Facebook group? That's your place to go. So that's my thoughts on Facebook and why Facebook is worth using for your digital ministry. Now let's talk about Twitter. Why should you use Twitter for digital ministry? Okay, well, first off, Twitter is the way that people participate in public conversations. This just lets you be a part of the wide conversation happening within culture as a whole. And is the church called to be a part of these conversations? I think so. Are you, as a public theologian, called to these town squares? Yes, we need your voice there. This is where that conversation continues to happen. In addition to that, Twitter is, I think, the best listening platform. Social media at its best is more of a listening platform than a broadcast platform. At least that's, I think, how churches, faith leaders, humans should use it, where we listen more than we talk. The whole 2 ears, 1 mouth concept. But you can, on Twitter, hear what so many people are saying. The search ability on Twitter, I think it's right there in the top corner of the Twitter page that you can go to, or on your phone, or you can go to search.twitter.com and you can have a really advanced search functionality where you could just listen to what people are saying in specific areas around specific topics, so you can just know what needs are there and how you can help meet them. Third, I think Twitter is a virtual cocktail party, meaning it's a place where people are gathering and you have the ability to listen to the conversation, join the conversation, meet new people. Just like if you're at a cocktail party, you can just kind of wander around, see a group of people, stand there with your drink, hear the conversation, jump in if you have a comment to say. Now, like a cocktail party, don't be the asshole who's standing in the middle of the room talking the entire time. Spend time listening, engaging, being a good, empathetic human being. But it's unique that it lets you just connect with people that you might never have had the chance to rub shoulders with, but because they're probably on Twitter, authors, leaders, all sorts of people, the big names in the world, us little people can actually have the chance to engage with them, and they might engage back. It's amazing. My friend Rob got Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, responded to my friend Rob from a post that he put about his daughter loving Star Wars and Luke Skywalker. How incredible is that? That's the beauty of the world we live in. Lastly, I think that the work of faith leaders in the Christian church, we often think about sermons, and then there's the shorter version called the homily. I think there's just a unique theological, pastoral, homiletical challenge to tweet it. If you can go from the sermon to the homily, can you go to the 280-character tweet? Or you can learn how to do a Twitter thread if you need a little more space. So I think Twitter just has a lot of potential for how we could use it and why we can use it in our digital ministry. Now, similar to Facebook, go to help.twitter.com for all your questions on how to use Twitter. They will all be answered right there. So there's Twitter, and there's why I think you should use Twitter. Now let's talk about Instagram. Instagram, this one, well, I like to think of Instagram as the modern day stained glass window, because Instagram is a visual first, image first platform. They're making some changes with video being more prevalent. You've all seen Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels. Their shop feature is now front and center. But regardless of all that, they are very much a visual first platform. In the same way that stained glass windows were a visual way of storytelling the Christian stories in the Bible, what if we used Instagram in a similar way? What visual story are we communicating as people of faith today? Because people are definitely there looking at it all. Scroll, tap, tap, all that good stuff. Second, Instagram gives you a wider demographic reach, at least compared to Facebook. You know, Facebook is definitely aging up. And I think Instagram has a wide reach. It's not just the kids. It's got an aged up audience as well. I mean, I'm 38 and I'm on Instagram. But, you know, we'll talk about TikTok later. That's where the kids are, but that's also aging up too. But compared to Facebook, this gives you a bit more wide demographic reach with the things that you're engaging with and the community you're cultivating. Instagram Reels can have a huge organic reach. This is their short form vertical video, Instagram's version of TikTok. It's new-ish in the past couple of years, and it still has an incredible organic reach. We've been using this at Riverside, where I'll often edit sermon clips down to 60-second or less vertical videos, and we've had some of those that get tens of thousands of views, as opposed to our typical tens of views. Big difference. It feels nice when you go from tens of views to tens of thousands of views. But that's just an organic reach. I just have to put the content in a place where the robots will distribute it to the people. Thank you, algorithm. And lastly, Instagram, I think, generally is just more fun than the other platforms. I don't know about you, but it feels less exhausting and like overwhelming and than the other platforms. So there's some Instagram for you. And like the others, you can go to help.instagram.com to find out all the how-tos, ins and outs of the platform. All right, now on to the next one, YouTube. I hope this doesn't take much convincing, but in case you need to be convinced why your digital ministry, your online church should utilize YouTube, here's a few reasons. Number one, YouTube is the number 2 most visited website in the world. Some of these stats ebb and flow as you look at monthly web traffic versus annual web traffic, but YouTube is definitely consistently up there. Last stats I saw were it's the second most visited website, second only to Google, by the way. Second, it's the second most used search engine on the internet. This is where people are going to search for all sorts of things. My friend Dave Adamson says that YouTube is where people go to ask questions like, how do I fix my car? And how do I fix my marriage? And chances are you have a sermon that can at least address one of those things. Maybe both. That'd be cool. But are we going to put our content where people are already looking for it? Seems like a good idea to me. Number 3, YouTube has longevity. It's not a new thing. It's not a new kid on the block. It's been around for over a decade now. There's a different psychological kind of experience people have compared to Facebook. It feels like it's just built into the infrastructure of the internet. So it has some stability. It's not going anywhere. So number 4, like I kind of just hinted at, it seems less controversial than Facebook, whereas Facebook still has this whole like the Russians are after me kind of vibe sometimes, or Mark Zuckerberg vibe. YouTube has avoided a lot of that. Not entirely. They have some, there's some mishaps. If you saw my last video about is the internet racist, YouTube's got some things Google has some things to work on, but YouTube by and far seems less controversial than Facebook for most people. And I think YouTube has a huge potential to reach new people because so many people are coming to the platform to look for content. It's similar to, like I said, Instagram Reels, putting your content to a place where people can just naturally find it. Wouldn't you want to make your sermons, your resources, all the things that you have already produced and captured available to people? Yeah, this is a good way to do it. You can still embed it on your website. You can make playlists so people from your church can find the stuff they need. But YouTube becomes an easy way for people to just stumble upon what you're already doing in the world. If you want to know how to use YouTube, help.youtube.com is the place to start. So that's why I think you should use YouTube. Vimeo's nice and all. You can customize how it all looks. But people aren't searching there. You got to go where the people are. That's what the Little Mermaid tells us and what Jesus tells us. And why not follow them both? They seem like smart people. Okay. Last but not least, TikTok. Here's why you should use TikTok. This has huge growth among all demographics. Everyone's showing up on this platform. It has been growing by leaps and bounds. I think it's surpassed 1 billion users faster than so many other platforms. It's on its way to exceed Facebook and Instagram, and I don't know what its future is going to be entirely, but it seems like it's worth at least being a part of the ride. Second, and similar, it has the best algorithm on social media, meaning as you start searching and engaging with content and liking content, it will continue to give you more content based on your interactions. So if you're wondering, why am I seeing all this stuff on TikTok? It's because that's the stuff you're engaging with most. As you start posting content, people who engage with other similar creators and content like yours, they will then engage with yours too. So it's just an incredible way to have people stumble upon you and for you to stumble upon and be inspired by so many others. Third, this is where online memes are born. Culture is being created on TikTok, and should the church be a part of that conversation and creation? I certainly hope so. At one point, the church was the center of culture in the Western world especially. That has definitely shifted, but I think we aren't out of the picture or out of the conversation, and we definitely have a lot of things to say, so we should at least be a part of this conversation, and TikTok is currently where a lot of that is happening. Fourth and fifth, there are a couple hashtags that are definitely worth participating in. You can search for these on TikTok. You should use these if you're making content that's about progressive Christianity, because you will be then connected to a large community of other progressive clergy and progressive Christianity stuff. There should not be a space between progressive and Christianity. That is, you know how hashtags work. No spaces. Typo on my slides. Anyway, the point being, there is a growing community that we can all engage with and participate in. And if you want to know how to use TikTok, support.tiktok.com is the place to go. But really, for all these platforms, the trick is to just dive in and see what happens. That's the trick. You just jump in and splash around. And you won't drown, I promise. You might get overwhelmed. That's okay. Step back, take a breath. Don't be overwhelmed by all the things. Don't try to do all the things. You got 1,440 minutes. How are you going to use them? Because I'm really curious, what would you add? What would you change? Where would you focus your time? What do you think is the most essential, important online platforms, social networks for churches, digital ministries, people of faith, faith leaders to use? So why don't you leave some comments below with what you think are the most helpful, essential, important social networks and online platforms for churches and digital ministries to use. And then also leave where we can find you. What are your social media handles? Put them in a comment so we can all follow one another and see all the great things we're all doing. All right. Last call for 100 questions. If you're watching this video in the future, it's currently February 2022. If you're watching this in March or April or beyond, the 100 question series has already begun, but I am finishing up my 100 questions, 100 1-minute videos that I'll be answering about digital ministry. So, leave a comment below with those or just email me here and I'll add yours to the list. Okay, you got lots of homework. I gotta go do something, edit a video, probably late for a Zoom meeting. Gotta go spend my 1,440 minutes for today in some hopefully intentional and life-giving way. Hope you do the same. Talk to you next time.